Okay, here we are. Alt.nerd.obsessive. Worst episode ever.
Hey everybody, welcome to Worst Episode Ever, a podcast for people who love The Simpsons, by people who love The Simpsons, about how much we hate The Simpsons. We're here trying to find which is the worst episode ever. And as always, my name is Dan.
And as always, my name is Jack.
And we are international radio superstars, Jack. Did you know this?
I was there, I heard.
You were there. Yes, if you haven't heard it yet, Jack and I were featured on a recent episode of Q, the Canadian Broadcasting Company's hit arts and entertainment show, hosted by Shadrach Kabango, who has the best name in radio, I'm convinced.
It's no Dan Mulhall.
I share a name with the British ambassador to Ireland, or the Ireland ambassador to Britain, or something like that. That's not the point. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Canada. If you guys haven't heard that yet, you can definitely get it. All of our social media, we tweeted it out, we Facebooked it. It's on our website. You can check it out, and you should. It's only 10 minutes long, and you hear us talk about The Simpsons and what we like. If you don't know what we think about The Simpsons, this 10-minute concise interview will do it. What was your experience doing it, Jack?
I at the very last second, my nerves really got to me. I kind of froze up. You were great.
Thank you.
You did a great job at expounding on what we do. I was just like, yeah, we do stuff, and The Simpsons is dumb. And then at one point, I called Hitler a great man.
Yes, it's worth listening to for that.
If anything, let's use this opportunity for me to expound on that, because
I think you defended yourself pretty well on the show.
The problem is they don't really give you any time to make your point. You basically can only say something without context. And
right.
So it was really scary. As soon as it came out, I was like, oh no, what do I do?
The second the words Adolf Hitler came out of your mouth, I went white and just my mouth dropped.
Yeah, it was bad. No, what I was talking about was the great man theory of history. The idea that
Hitler was a great man. We all got what you were saying, Jack.
I was not saying that. There's a theory that history is pushed forward by individuals who are at the right place, right time. Like one person really changes the world, as opposed to a series of events that would have happened no matter what.
Great is not exactly a connotation.
Yeah, exactly.
It's great meaning they had a great impact on the world.
I wasn't saying that it was great. I was saying he was great in a very morose, somber,
horrible way.
His contribution. No, not contribution. This is really.
Digging it deeper. But this show is not live. We could just start over again if we wanted to, and you could just cut all that.
Yeah. Well, I won't. You know what? I just want to say I don't think Hitler was great. And you know what? Fuck it. He wasn't even a great. He did nothing to history.
Shitty artist too.
Yeah,
his art was terrible.
And he was ugly.
And he was ugly. What was that mustache? What was that hair? I don't think so. No good.
He deserved a horrible death.
Yes, absolutely. And he got it in the bunker. Although no one was there in the bunker where it happened.
I hope that is appeased. I've appeased the Canadians, the Jews,
the Germans.
The Germans. Everybody, yeah.
World War II veterans. Yes. If you haven't listened to it, you should check it out. It is on our website, wepodcast.com. You can listen to that interview. But that is not why we're here today. We're not here to just talk about Adolf Hitler. We are here to watch Angry Dad, the movie from season 22. Originally aired. When did that originally air? I think it was February of 2011. Jack, have you seen this one?
I'm going to give it a definitive, maybe, probably, don't know.
I have seen this one. I don't really remember it, but I remember I was in law school at the time and someone told me it was a pretty good episode, and I watched it, and I remember it being okay for a new Simpsons episode. Right. But it was suggested by Lynn Sokolow, friend of the show.
Lynn.
That suggests a lot of things. So we're going to take a break and watch it, and we're not watching What Animated Women Want, which is what we said we were going to watch last episode. We're going to do that one. We're going to push it to
next
Valentine's Day, probably
yeah.
Because we had some special guests that we wanted to bring on, but for various reasons, it all fell through. So here we're doing Angry Dad the movie. If you haven't seen it, you can do it on Simpsons World or however you watch the show, and we're going to take a break, and we're going to watch it. While we do that, you should click through our Amazon links on wepodcast.com. That's weepodcast.com. You can listen to our radio interview. You can buy whatever the hell you want on Amazon, and we get a small cut after you click our links. So thanks for that.
And it helps more than I ever thought it would. So
it does.
Keep it up, guys.
We are in business. We have professional mics now. We're like really coming up in the podcast world.
Okay, at least Canada thinks so.
Yeah, Canada definitely thinks so. I don't know how we tricked them into thinking we knew anything about anything, but they did. And if you are a Canadian listener who we picked up from Q, I'm sorry, we know nothing. And there's a lot of wacky voices, and Leonardo DiCaprio is dead on this show, and it's a whole thing. But onward and upward, we're going to take a break. Angry Dad the movie.
I hope they I hope they started with episode 1, and then after 71 hours, they finally find out we come clean.
He's like, no, I've wasted my days. This is how all people in Canada talk. We'll take a break.
Hitler is not a great man.
Check it out. That's Angry Dad.
Hey, why ain't you at the Oscars, AD?
Oscars? What are you talking about? My son gave me this list of awesome things to do in L.A.
Chatsworth? That's where the 118 meets Topanga Canyon, fool.
Someone must not want you that kudo cast, yo.
Damn, home simp, you've been Oscar blocked.
So that was Angry Dad the movie.
It sure was, Jack.
Made me Angry Jack the person.
I could tell because you got up at one point and just smashed the entire living room, and then it had nothing to do with anything else.
It's just sometimes you gotta smash.
Sometimes you do it. There's a green guy who knows a little bit about that. It's the Jolly Green Giant. Hulk smash. Was that this show? I don't remember.
Was that 90s? I think it was this show.
We could cut that if it was. Or listen to 90s percentile.
It's all blurring together.
It's all
now.
becoming one.
Anyway, quick plot recap. So basically, there was an episode from whatever season
I think
it
was
was.
season 13.
Season 13, where Bart makes
So 11 years before this episode.
Wow. So he makes a web series about Angry Dad based on Homer. And this is a sequel to that episode where the guy who now owns the rights to Angry Dad wants to make a full-length animated movie to get his money back. So they do. They make an Angry Dad movie starring Homer Simpson as Angry Dad.
Yep.
And the movie doesn't work, so they decide to cut it down to a short film. And now it's really good. It gets nominated for Best Animated Short for the Golden Globe and wins. It does the award show circuit. And Homer keeps taking credit for it, even though he just did the voice. And Bart's jealous. I guess Bart wrote the movie?
I don't know.
What Bart's place was in the
you're ascribing a lot
process?
of plot to this episode that may or may not actually be there.
No. So Bart's just kind of mad that Homer keeps getting the credit. So he tricks Homer. He gets nominated for an Oscar, and he tricks Homer into not going to the Oscars. But Homer finds out. Due to some gang that he and Marge join. And
You say that if it didn't make organic sense in the story.
And Bart wins the Oscar and decides at the last minute that he wants his dad to take some of the credit from whatever reason.
Well, it wasn't even that he wanted his dad. We could get into this later, but it's just he wants to share it with everybody who worked on the movie, kind of for no reason.
So at the very end, it turns into a speech about how movies are collaborative. And that's pretty much it. But the other thing we should mention is this episode was a showcase for different animation styles. We get to see the other animated shorts that are nominated.
Yeah, we'll get into those.
And they do a CGI Pixar parody, a claymation, Wallace and Gromit.
We'll talk about them.
We'll get into all that.
My question to you, Jack, is you just did the plot recap for this episode.
Yeah.
What is this episode about? Besides showcasing parodies of current animated hits.
So
what is the point of this episode?
The basic plot is what I just said. As for some kind of thematic backbone, it looked like apparently it was either they're trying to say something about movies need to be collaborative, or it's about this tension between Bart and Homer, but both of those things only show up at the very
end.
less.
Like, I think the tension between Bart and Homer, that's an interesting dynamic to explore, like Homer taking credit for something Bart did, but that's not at all what happens in this episode.
Very end.
They act like it is, it's Bart's movie, but we rarely see Bart talk about it as his movie until the very end when he's like, oh, it's everybody's movie.
No, this episode is like Kevin Bacon in that horror movie classic, Hollow Man.
This episode was Hollow Man.
It was Hollow Man.
And by the way, Hollow Man wasn't hollow. He still has insides. He's just invisible. I never understood why it was called Hollow Man.
I guess they couldn't call it Invisible. I've never seen it.
Yeah, you did. We saw it together, didn't we?
No, I never saw. You said
I would
purposely
bet money that we saw it together.
You purposely said, "Don't tell Jack we're going to see Hollow Man,"
because I know you love Kevin Bacon.
I'm thinking because you knew I'd get upset about the title in the middle of the movie.
Yeah. Wait a minute. I remember having conversations about how the title doesn't make with you about how the title doesn't make sense.
But I've never seen the movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or Hollow Man 2 starring Nathan
The Halloween.
Fillion?
I have no idea.
Anyway.
I wasn't aware there was a 2.
No, so, I mean, this episode had a lot of celebrities, and it spent a lot of time at the awards show, and there were a lot of real celebrity voices and also impersonations of celebrities.
Right.
It reminded me of the old Looney Tunes episodes where they would go to an award show and they'd have characterizations of Humphrey Bogart and James Cagney.
Yeah.
And then Animaniacs did an updated version of that in the 90s.
And clearly
with
Russell Brand is our updated Humphrey Bogart.
So that's I really feel like this episode just a big missed opportunity. Not just in terms of they had this story about collaborative filmmaking and Homer and Bart's
Right.
thing that they didn't do anything with, but also how cool would it have been to see like a Simpsonized version of that classic Looney Tunes Animaniacs Hollywood Bart, have characterizations of these, because they have, like, Anthony Hopkins has a scene, Martin Scorsese, not the real ones. There's a Martin Scorsese impression that's not bad. And if they would have just tied that in a little bit better and maybe make the episode about that. The Simpsons go to an award show.
Yeah.
Maybe make it all take place in one night or something, or that's the third act or whatever.
Right. I think what the problem was let's make fun of award shows as opposed to the Simpsons go to an award show and their satire.
Exactly.
Because what this episode most closely resembled to me was The Front from season 4, where Bart and Lisa write our Itchy and Scratchy episode and it gets nominated for an award. And we have, Bart and Lisa and Grandpa are at an awards show, and that's an inherent part of the plot, and it makes sense in character and everything, but we also have an opportunity to make fun of Ren and Stimpy and He-Man and all the things that they did, which were then current.
And also award show. Is that the episode that
and
has...
me, the blue-haired goon.
Yeah, I was going to say, because there's a
Shields.
few scenes of award show presenters in this episode.
Yes.
And Halle Berry was okay, but Russell Brand, he was not funny at all.
I mean...
And I couldn't tell if the joke was Russell Brand makes a bad joke, and everybody knows those award show presentations are a bad joke, but then he does a joke on top of that I think was supposed to be the Simpsons joke, the one we're actually supposed to laugh at, and it was terrible.
I got to be honest with you, I don't remember anything Russell Brand said.
He said something about, it's great to see my friends from rehab. Just kidding, none of you are my friends. And then, like, Elton John gets mad.
Right.
It was terrible.
Yeah,
Now compare that to The Front with Brooke Shields and Krusty.
Right.
Krusty.
Where the joke is Krusty's reading the cue card and me, the blue-haired goon. What? That's terrible. And the joke is these things are not good.
And the pairing of Krusty the Clown in a tuxedo with Brooke Shields, it's all just there. You don't have to make fun of it. Just by animating it, you're making fun of it.
Absolutely.
It just shows you how much better the show was back then.
Yeah. I mean,
God.
They could, it would have been repetitive of The Front to do something that was very, very similar, but it's like an update of it. And you're seeing, things have changed since 1993.
Right. And like I said, the Front's very specific. And it's not the same as those Looney Tunes Animaniacs episodes where you have all the celebrities. And this felt like that because they had a ton of celebrities. They could have used that angle instead. So they could have done what they did in The Front, but from a different angle.
Right.
Take a different look at a different part of award show culture. Like they could have made fun of like the gift bags, like how the gift bags are $200,000 and there's something ridiculous in the gift.
They sort of did. There was one throwaway line where Bart was like, "I'm going to get a gift bag and not write it off on my taxes," or something like that. It's just like, okay.
Yeah.
We've never been to award shows. We represent the vast majority of people.
We're still a little pissed we haven't been nominated for the potties. But
I've been to the potties many times.
I went to the potty right before we recorded.
But yeah. No, there are Webby Awards. I don't know if there's a podcast specific award, but
I think I actually just read about one. But clearly we
were not nominated. Maybe we will this episode
for best animated, for best voice of a monster that eats little Hispanic girls.
Why did you eat me? I will never forget the day the Grufik slayed me. More people wanted Little Ghost Girl this episode, so I'm doing it. This is for Reddit.
That's why I'm just letting it do it.
Okay, goodbye. That was weird.
It's rare to get an episode that is like a direct sequel to a previous episode. There's a few, and you could count Mother Simpson episodes and stuff like that.
Right, or Sideshow Bob.
Yeah, but it was very interesting that they brought this back.
Right.
I can't believe it was 11 years difference. That's crazy.
And that kind of plays fast and loose with the timeline here.
I wanted to bring you up. Yeah. So they've talked about how the company went under in the .com bubble, which was part of the plot of that season 13 episode.
Yes, they were giving out stock like toilet paper.
And then it does go under. Mm-hmm. And was season 13 1999? Was that when...
13 would have been 2001 to 2002, I think.
Well, anyway, they flash back to it when the original Angry Dad went under.
It said 99.
It said 99, and they're treating Bart as the creator. So what? So
what year is it now? When did Bart create this thing?
This came out when?
This came out in 2011.
2011. So Bart was -2 when he came up with Angry Dad.
Apparently.
I mean, it's
nitpicking, yes,
I know.
but it just, when they put the thing up that said 1999, it's just like, okay,
they didn't need to do that. They could have just avoided that completely.
Yeah,
could have made it the 2008 bubble, whatever.
Yeah, it's just not even, don't even say just like, it was the thing, and then they went bankrupt. We all know what you're talking about. We all get it.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird disconnects I want to get into about gags and stuff as we get through it. There was some very weird editing, and not weird, just bad editing, just bad,
just bad. Yeah, we'll get there.
Was this the longest Itchy and Scratchy segment ever? Even longer than the opening to the Simpsons movie?
It might have been. You're right. I think it could have been.
The episode opens with
an Itchy and Scratchy episode called The Great Brawl of China, and it was pretty much Kill Bill.
Yeah, it's like a parody of like actual Chinese kung fu movies.
Right.
Yeah.
But, it was either a direct parody of part of Kill Bill 2 or parodying the movies that influenced Quentin Tarantino and Kill Bill 2. I do think it was one of, if not the longest Itchy and Scratchy episode, and I kind of liked that this was an episode about animation, and it started with a long cartoon.
Yeah, you know what? That makes it better.
I liked it, but did you like the actual Itchy and Scratchy cartoon?
I didn't laugh very much.
Me neither.
I'm not a big kung fu movie guy. I think you're actually a bigger kung fu movie
and that's not saying much because I'm not super into them, but I'm bigger than you, probably.
I got the references, like the music and the editing style. I got it. I just didn't laugh.
I mean,
the punchline was funny. It turns out that
what happened was Itchy cuts off the head of Scratchy's master, and we're in feudal China, and Scratchy climbs all this way up into a temple and studies with this grand master to learn kung fu and get revenge. And he gets to Itchy, and he's about to take revenge, and he's like, "No, I'm going to show you mercy." And then his mentor comes out, and it turns out that was also Itchy.
Yeah.
And then they both kill him. All the Itchies just kill Scratchy. Which I saw coming, but I still liked it because, it was funny enough. It was very long, though.
It didn't make me laugh as much as other Itchy and Scratchies.
Yeah.
And it was long. And so that's how the episode starts, and Bart's watching it. Apparently they left Bart home alone to get frozen yogurt.
Yeah.
Why isn't Bart going with them?
I have no idea. And there's no explanation for that at all. It's not even like Bart doesn't like frozen yogurt. It's just Bart is home. And we're getting frozen yogurt.
So while Bart's home, he trashes the house. He sees a ceiling fan. He's like bored, and the ceiling fan's like calling out to him in the form of a clown.
It turns into this terrifying clown that I wondered if that was some kind of reference to "Can't Sleep, Clown Will Eat Me."
Clown.
But
it was a different clown.
Yeah, it was a different clown, but maybe Bart has a fear of clowns, although he wasn't afraid of it until it said it was going to eat him.
It's very similar, again, to the classic episode where the tractor calls out to Bart.
Right.
Where he's just like, hey, come on, wouldn't it be great to But that took on the form of an anthropomorphic. Did I say that right?
Anthropomorphic.
Fuck. Anthropomorphic.
Yes, there you go.
Tractor where it's talking with the steam valve lid, and that's great. Whereas this is really weird that the ceiling fan, rather than becoming an anthropomorphic. Reverse alphabetical order, PM. Anthropomorphic.
Yes, that's how I remember anthropomorphic.
Anthropomorphic ceiling fan. I'm sure you could do that, make it look like a flower or something. It's weird that it became a clown.
It became this weird clown, yeah. And also, like,
I don't know.
This episode, the biggest problem with this episode is that nothing is explained. No. It's not explained why Bart is home while everyone else is going to get yogurt, why it's a clown.
You could say, all right, whatever, we need this to get the plot going, so whatever, Bart's home by himself, except this entire sequence...
nothing to do with anything, not one bit.
Yeah, it doesn't even have like a weird, so this sort of leads into this. Most non sequitur openings have some kind of weird thread that it's not necessary, but that's how you got from A to B.
It'll tee something up.
Yeah,
this tees nothing up.
It's just there.
Bart ties himself, he gets a really long rope, ties himself to the ceiling fan, and then runs the ceiling fan so that he's like whipped around as the rope is coiling up on the fan, and he causes all this property damage to the house, almost dies, almost gets eaten by the clown.
As he's skateboarding through the house causing damage, it was a great choice to use the actual Simpsons theme music.
Yeah.
So it added like a festive fun thing to the
right.
It's going dan, 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 and as he's like just skateboarding through the kitchen and stuff.
Right.
I like that.
That seemed
got
very
me into the mood.
Yeah, that seemed
scene.
very early seasons.
Yeah.
Like they'd done things like that where Bart is doing some kind of stunt or a prank, and they do like that little musical sting. But it ends, Bart is about to be eaten by the clown fan. I didn't think I'd ever say that in my life. He escapes the clown fan, and
I already put that on my tombstone. I just
escaped
knew.
the clown fan. That's how he died.
Wait, I escaped, and then I died of a heart attack.
It was out of one frying pan and into the fire. Anyway, first of all, it was weird to see Bart like with the ceiling fan and the rope. I thought he was going to hang himself.
Yeah.
It was really, really off-putting. But then, yeah, he has destroyed the house. Homer and Marge come in, and they're like, we're angry at you, basically. And then there's a knock on the door, and we're on to the next thing.
Before we get basically the point is this had nothing to do with
anything.
It's weird. It wasn't particularly funny. I like the Simpsons music, but that's it. There was a joke at the frozen yogurt shop where
I did like this.
It's it's one of those places where you have all the toppings,
like a pink berry or a red mango, where you can mix in the toppings.
And I like the idea that Homer used the tip jar as a topping.
Yeah.
It's a funny way to think of it.
Yeah, I like that
it's
too.
It's the same container. They're all lined up next to each other. It makes sense. I like that.
I like that.
But
there was at best, this is very much reaching. It's a bit of a huge stretch. Homer has a line where he's kind of cleaning up Bart's mess, and he's like, "Do you have any idea how much money you've cost me?" At best, that is to show that Homer is angry at Bart. And it kind of makes sense that he's going to become what he becomes later on.
Oh, I thought you were going to say just the need for money is why they do Angry Dad the movie. Although even if they didn't need the money, even if that's not really a thing, because it's like if they came and said, "Hey, we can make this movie and make some money," you're not going to go, "Well, we didn't just cause lots of damage, so
we don't need the money."
So that really makes no sense.
There was no clown fan related incident.
Like I said, there's a lot of weird editing choices and pacing choices in a lot of the humor.
Yeah.
And the first one I noticed was Bart trashes the room, and it's a wide shot of Bart in the family room. It's trashed. He's there, and you hear Homer off camera going, "Oh, what the hell did you do? That's it. I'm eating your frozen yogurt."
Right, and then it cuts, and then we see Homer and Marge says, "You already ate it in the car."
It's really weird that they introduce Homer and Marge coming home, which is a big, supposedly, beat in this story, even though it ends up being the last beat.
Yeah.
But this is a big beat. Uh-oh, Bart get caught. It's weird that they introduce Homer and Marge off camera and then don't bring them in for any, it seemed completely unmotivated.
I'm going to make an educated guess. I think there were a lot of weird animation glitches in this episode. I'm going to guess that they got Ricky Gervais kind of late because he had this episode came out, I think, a month after he had hosted that first Golden Globes where everyone was kind of like, "Oh, Ricky Gervais was mean at the Golden Globes." I think maybe they might have gotten him late, and there's a scene later on where it's 2 minutes of Ricky Gervais just talking.
Yeah, you could tell they just let him
riff, which we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
But I think that riff being in there meant they had to cut other things out of the episode, and they probably nipped out the piece where we actually see Homer and Marge come in.
So you're saying they had to make some cuts.
And so they just 80-yard Homer and Marge coming in.
Yeah, they had to make some cuts that were probably a little jarring. Sometimes you can't make a cut. Anyway.
Yeah. Wow. They'll never let us say that again. So there's a knock on the door, and it is, I don't remember the guy's name, but it is basically the guy who created the Aeron chair, the kind of ergonomical chair that all the tech startups had. And he comes in, and he's like, "Hello, I'm the inventor of the ergonomic chair." Yeah. And I was just like, okay.
Yeah, it's really out of nowhere.
But then I actually did like that he made this chair, sold it to all the tech companies that went bankrupt, and because they never paid their bill, he acquired the rights to Angry Dad.
It's an interesting angle to
It's an interesting idea.
Look at startups that the chair would end up getting all the money of the chair company. That was fine.
Like the chair guy now owns all the IP for these
Speaking of the IP, that was one of the funnier bits, I think, in the entire episode is they show the different web series that, that he owns.
I was just going to get into this. So he now owns the whole studio, including all of their shows, not just Angry Dad. Yeah. There were 4 total. I don't remember what the first one was, but there was Untitled Gina Davis Internet Project 1999. Yeah. John Stankworth Fart Detective, which was clearly the best one.
Yeah. Stankworth's a great fart detective.
And then I think it was The Adventures of Parody Man, and it was just
that's
a superhero with like pieces of different superheroes' costumes.
Darth Vader, yeah. No, that Parody Man is like funny in that vein of like the comics from the classic episode where it was like Man Boy, Tree Man. Yeah.
Yes,
I like that.
But John Stankworth Fart Detective, I would love to watch that show.
So then they talk about how Bart. They want to make an Angry Dad movie, and Homer says, "You could be the next Roman Polanski." And Marge is like, "Don't say that." And he's like, "Why?" And she whispers into his ear, presumably that Roman Polanski had sex with a 13-year-old girl.
Yep.
And so all of this was really forced. It was like they were trying to get to this joke, and it just stood out so much. It was so forced. I did like. Again, the means kind of justify the end. I liked the surrealness that once Homer finds out Roman Polanski is a rapist, he chokes
Bart and says, "How could you do that?
How could you do that?" Because he had already said Bart's the next Roman Polanski. That's all like a weird little surreal. But it was just so like You have to stop the episode cold to go,
Exactly.
who's Roman Polanski? Whisper in your ear.
Exactly. And I feel like that episode did this constantly, where it was just stop everything, we have to make a joke. And it was just very jarring and not organic at all.
Yeah.
But that was the end of the first act.
Yeah, the one other scene I liked, I don't know if it was in the end of the first or the beginning of the second, but it was one of the only other things I liked about this episode was there's a flashback to the chair guy's childhood where he's...
Oh, yeah, this was later, but it was great.
He's building a chair, and his like angry father says, "How dare you build a chair? In this house, we sit on the ground." And the family is just sitting on the floor.
I really like that.
Again, that was
That
like
was
a nice
funny.
little surreal... These are kind of the weird, surreal kind of jokes that wouldn't have existed in the classic era, but that I welcome in a Simpsons episode.
I don't know. I could see that in a classic era.
I think it's a little bit more postmodern. I don't know if
Maybe.
that kind of humor even existed or was that prevalent at
It
the time.
reminds me of like a flashback Mr. Burns would do to his childhood.
Yeah.
But the joke there is, yeah, you're right. It's a
It's a
little
little more meta.
It's a little more meta.
The idea that it's playing on the trope of the dad, not
Right.
approving of the child and using the chair as this mundane thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
Whatever.
If that's a weird meta smart humor, then that's a very different thing than what comes next with the ass humor, where Homer shuffles
Right,
a
so-
deck of cards with his butthole.
So the chair guy takes Homer and
I
Bart
thought I'd
and the
never
family.
say that. That's something I thought I'd never say out loud.
That's on my tombstone, ironically enough. I just knew it was going to have a big part of my life.
And apparently that
Butthole,
that
shuffle,
six of
whatever.
diamonds got wedged up there.
It was, and
killed
that
you.
was the end of me. By the way, we have the gift of foresight.
We know
and
how
we
we're going
know
to
how
die.
we're going to die. We
Just
don't know anyone
that's
else.
it.
Just you and I.
I know you, and you know
and
me.
you know me.
That's-
Yeah, and that's it.
It's not the best mutant power.
No, it's better than Cypher. He's an actual mutant who can read other languages. Although that's very
That's a
practical.
great-
It's
I
very
would
practical
love that.
in real life, but in
I
the
would love
X-Men,
that. Yeah. Although now you can
universe,
get an
it
app
wasn't
for
so
that.
good.
Google Translate just reached its 100th language. It kind of there's not a
That's
lot of
why they
apps
kicked
that
him off
make-
of the
yeah,
X-Men.
There's not a lot of apps that make X-Men obsolete. Like this. Well,
I don't know, my appamantium.
oh
No.
boy.
Okay.
That makes Wolverine.
It makes it yeah.
Obsolete?
I
Is
don't
that
know
what-
what it does. I guess it makes claws come out of my phone. I don't know. All right.
Yeah. So the ass humor. That's where this all got started.
But yeah, the chair guy takes Homer and Bart and the family to his animation studio, and the animators are having trouble animating Angry Dad's ass. And they're like, "What can you give us, Mr. Simpson?
I love that
based
there's a
on
team
you?"
devoted to his ass.
Right? Yeah. Well, it's like Pixar has teams devoted to like
grass.
fur
Yeah,
or grass
yeah.
or wind,
No,
water.
that's a funny
Yeah.
joke. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was good. And he says, "Do I have something for you? Watch this." And he puts a shit. He puts
his shit in his butt.
in his ass. Thanks for listening,
He does everything.
Canadian
Yes,
listeners.
he does everything different. He puts a shit in his ass. So apparently, my guy who does everything different is
Yeah.
now talks like he's from the 20s. See, I do everything different. See, Rah.
I'm from the 20s instead of right now.
Rah. Check out my podcast, 20th percentile. And by podcast, I mean live radio. Rah. I do everything different. See.
Oh boy. What was my point? Oh, Homer.
Oh, you don't like my silly characters, huh?
I sure don't, Jack. There can only be room for one.
We're 13. In
If
this
you're a
country.
new listener, you don't know what's happening. Bye. He puts a deck of cards in his butt and shuffles them with his butt. We don't see this. We see it through his pants, and then he kind of deals them out. And then he also opens a
and like
Coke bottle.
so first of all, that was okay animation. It didn't make me laugh. I didn't hate it, but
I didn't hate it. It was just nothing. It
But
was
talk
just
about an extra beat. Then why do you feel the need to do a whole other ass play thing on
right.
top of that?
Just do the drink one. Why did we need to do
it
the
should
animation
be just
thing,
like my
or
sex
the
life,
card thing?
Just one ass play and then move on with business.
And then
get on with the plot.
There you go. That's what I.
Two ass plays is too much. Really, it's ass played out.
That's what I say in the bedroom. I said, "Let's get on with the plot."
Yeah.
Ass play is over.
You ready for the climax?
Oh, well, it makes sense. All right, we got there. But yeah, because then he does another thing with soda where he opens it with his butt and then offers it to the guy, and the guy's like, "Oh no!" And that's the end of the scene. Like
Well,
we just
actually,
needed
then
that.
there's another beat where Homer goes, "Okay, I'll drink it," and you think he's going to drink it. It's like, "Ew, gross!" But then he
Oh,
drinks
I
it through
forgot
his
about
butt.
that.
Yeah, he drinks.
Yes.
He puts the shit in his butt.
He puts the shit in his butt. What is that about?
It's more
It's
funny.
just-
It's
it's
ass
just-
humor.
Look, Jack.
It's funny
I
because it's a butt.
I love butts. Okay, I think I'm on record
You
as
cannot
being a
lie.
butt guy.
You
I cannot lie. I like them round and big, and watch that juicy double. Dan-a-lot's in trouble if my wife's listening. I like butt humor as much as the next guy, and this just left me confused and a little bit aroused.
Yeah, no, it was too much butt humor.
Too much butt.
Yeah, and if honestly, if you're screwing up butt humor, you're off
Something's
game.
wrong
Yeah.
if you can't get a butt joke in.
But.
So yeah, Homer, the guy who did the voice of Angry Dad as the webcomic died or something. I don't know.
His voice got shot out because he
Right.
yelled because he was so
'Cause he had never gotten
angry
paid.
that he got paid.
Yeah.
At first, I thought he was like he got so into character that he was angry, but that wasn't irrelevant. It was a
It
weird.
was just another startups didn't have
and
any
the
money
delivery
joke.
was really weird. She's like, he lost his voice because he didn't get paid.
Right.
The
Also,
first time, it's like, wait, are you doing that still to delivery because each joke is like building on top of it? Because it didn't really work like that. It was almost
No.
like she just put weird pauses in a sentence,
and it was also
at random voices.
the lip sync
Voices.
didn't match the audio very well, so that
Oh,
seemed like
maybe-
another spot
okay.
where there might have been something else and something
All
got
right,
cut.
maybe your theory might not be wrong because there's lots
Yeah.
of weird editing things that happen this episode, and I'm thinking you're right. Maybe
It
it
had
was
to
to
have
make
been.
time for Gervais.
Make time for Gervais, or even just like, oh, condiments went long, but it's really good and we like
that's
it, and we
true.
paid a lot of money for
Yeah,
it.
that's true too.
It could have been. But anyway, my point was Homer becomes the voice of Angry Dad. They ask if he can get angry on command, and he like knocks over all the cubicles.
Yeah,
it was whatever.
They're like, does he get angry easily? And he got angry because he got lost in the cubicles
Yeah.
while he was singing a song.
It-
and then
no,
he
it
sang
just-
the song angry. And
Again,
then-
like everything else in this episode, there's no context for it. It's just like it's a thing that happens,
Yeah.
and then we move on.
yeah.
But
It was. That's right. This was just a series of things that happened.
was just
and then
a series of things
It's like
that
that Jim Carrey movie with a
the
series.
mask.
It's just like that Jim
Somebody
Carrey.
stop this episode. It's shitty.
Shut up.
But the point I wanted to make was what was my point? No, I got my point. But yeah, Homer becomes the voice of Angry Dad, and they're doing a table read, and Homer, for some reason, isn't there. He's like on the
he's on the speakerphone.
He's on the speakerphone calling in, and the cutaway gag is he had something important to do at the power plant, and apparently it was Taco Tuesday at the power plant.
Yeah.
Okay,
That was a joke.
but why?
The
Like,
yeah.
why are we? Why these things? Why is this?
The only other joke they do with that, with the speakerphone, is that he's reading the script directions for making noises, for making painful noises.
Right.
And Lisa, I don't know why Lisa's there. Lisa's like, no, Dad, you have to make the painful noises. And then for whatever reason, rather than acting them out, Homer's acting in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
He asked Lenny to actually hurt him with a chair, and
Right.
then the joke is that you hear him get hurt. It's I guess it's funnier because you're only hearing it. He
guess.
gets hit with a chair, and then the
they
phone
hang up.
hangs up.
Right, and that's the end of the scene.
That's the only thing justifying the speaker. But
Right. Why have Homer
Why?
on speakerphone
Yeah,
and
why?
then explain it as Taco Tuesday? I mean, a Taco Tuesday thing's fine. I like that
I
Homer puts tacos above being in a movie.
I'm really hungry. I haven't eaten in a while.
You wanna get some
and,
tacos? It's not Tuesday.
I'm craving a taco now.
There is a Taco Bell nearby.
I'm
That could be our new
craving I'm
Popeyes.
craving an actual taco.
Oh, all right.
Not
You don't want
dog
future
food.
diarrhea?
Is that one of the? Is that the
Yeah.
number 3?
Yeah, that's
I'll
the
take
fourth meal.
I'll
It's
take the
future diarrhea.
please.
Taco Bell does not sponsor
That's
this
our
show.
only other mutant power. We can see each other's deaths, and when one of us is going to get diarrhea. By the way, Dan, try to stay near home 3 p.m. Wednesday
Okay, I will do that.
because you're gonna get diarrhea.
Well, we both had the gift of diarrhea sight when Dan Ozzie was on this podcast and he ate that grilled Dorito
I don't
thing.
think you needed any kind of sixth sense or ESP to know that nacho cheese fried
cheese.
Doritos it was going to give you diarrhea.
Yep.
I think anybody could have. I think Helen Keller would have been like, "You're gonna get diarrhea." Well, she would have been like,
cut that. That's not going in. Or maybe it is. I don't know. Are
Is
we
that
terrible
offensive?
people? Adolf Hitler was a great man.
No, he wasn't. And Helen Keller was
No,
an
he
inspiration.
wasn't. Obviously, that was a joke.
What's
And
going
Helen
on?
Keller was an inspiration.
Should that be the name of the episode?
I kind of like that. It's not bad.
So I guess that's it now.
Yeah, is all
Us
this
making
it?
fun of deaf people saying Hitler's great.
We'll see. We'll see where we go with this episode.
So the Angry Dad becomes a short because the 4-hour cut was apparently not liked. Again, this is all nothing. There's nothing. There's no gags, no jokes. There's just nothing.
There's that guy who's like, make it stop. And we were trying to figure out what that is. Maybe it's George C. Scott.
Was it
I don't
Howard
know.
Beale? I don't know what that was because they bring it back again later. Anyway, let us know in the comments.
Or don't. I don't care.
Have you noticed that we're doing what the episode did now? We're so like discombobulated from this episode that we're just kind of throwing points out there out of context.
I'm just ready to end the show.
Anyway, so it gets nominated. The short gets nominated for a Golden Globe. Golden Globes, if you don't know, for whatever reason, is done by the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, which is like 90 people who live in California.
Much smaller than the Academy.
It's not foreign. It's foreigners because it's the foreign press, but you have to live in California. You're based in Hollywood. I just found this out recently. It's actually mostly like
I didn't know that they all lived in Hollywood.
Yeah, it's really like not even like it could be people who lived in the country for 30 years, but they came from France or whatever.
Right.
But so anyway,
like the Coneheads. We come from France.
Exactly.
We are in the Hollywood Foreign Press.
That was the Coneheads too that never got made.
Oh man, it really should have.
Dan Aykroyd,
It would have won a
Jane Curtin.
Golden Globe for sure.
They love self-promotion. They should get Dan Aykroyd as John Conehead. I don't remember his name.
Beldar was his name.
Yeah.
By the way, I love the Coneheads movie. I love it.
Check it out on 90s Percenter. We'll get to it.
We'll get to it.
Maybe we'll do Sync Points.
Ooh.
I doubt it's streaming anymore. Anyway, no, he should host instead of Ricky Gervais. Ricky Gervais is terrible now. He was not funny at all.
Get Dan Aykroyd as Beldar?
In 2017 to host the Golden Globes.
Let's do it. Hollywood Foreign Press, if you're listening, get on it.
Bart, we've got some bad news. The actor who did the original voice of Angry Dad can't do the movie. He blew out his voice screaming about how he never got paid the first time around.
Anyway, so it's the Golden Globes, unlike the Academy, Oscars, Emmys, those are usually voted on by peers, people in the industry in the same category.
Right.
This is just 90 people who pick the awards. So to represent the Hollywood Foreign Press, you need a foreign character, or if you want somebody we know, a foreign Springfielder. And for whatever reason, they pick Luigi, the pizza guy.
Right.
And it's weird because we see him in like a suit and a hat. It was like a weird turn of the century immigrant suit.
You're right, it was. I kind of like he comes in and he says, "You know me from the spaghetti," or whatever. He said something like that. But today I'm here on behalf of the Hollywood Foreign Press.
Yeah. But why Luigi? I guess there's not a lot of foreigners to choose from.
I guess
Rainier Wolfcastle's a foreigner and he's in the industry. That would have made much more sense. The only thing I could think of is they're like, okay, we could do Rainier Wolfcastle, but we've done lots of Rainier Wolfcastle scenes. Yeah. We've never done a Luigi scene. Let's do Luigi. So every once in a while they try to make a tertiary character give him a little bit more room. But nothing was funny. Is it funny that he's talking in his accent?
I kind of would have liked if it was Apu. And it's
Apu
like a
Bollywood
kind of thing, connection.
Yeah,
somehow.
Apu would have made much more sense.
Yeah.
It was weird to pick Luigi, and I'm not going to say it's a bad choice. Luigi's been around forever. If you want to give him more to do, great. But there was nothing. It was just he's talking in a funny accent. And then he yelled. I like the idea that
there was a gag.
Yeah,
that he yells across the street. Apparently, Anthony Hopkins has moved in across the street from the
Bush's
Simpsons.
house.
Yeah, in Bush's old house. And Luigi says, "I came here to tell you about the Hollywood Foreign Press, and also to tell Anthony Hopkins his pizza's going to be late."
Yeah, the joke being you think he's talking to Hopkins about the Hollywood Foreign Press, but he's actually on pizza business. So they go to the Hollywood Foreign Press, and on the red carpet they bump into the competition.
Right, and they bump into Mixar, not Pixar. It's like Maple. Well, they've added an M.
Or Cosmic Wars. It's like, why? Just call Pixar.
Yeah, I mean, well,
just call Pixar.
It's interesting because at the very least, Brad Bird worked on The Simpsons and then was also a Pixar guy, and I think still is a Pixar guy in some respects.
But it's playful jostling. You're not insulting them. You call them Pixar.
Well, they very clearly, the animation of the Mixar guys, it was John Lasseter and Pete Docter was definitely in there. I think Brad Bird was probably one of them, too.
The only two I recognized was Pete Docter and one I was like, I think that's supposed to be Brad Bird. They should have got Brad Bird.
Definitely the lead Mixar guy.
They should have had Brad Bird play himself.
They should have had Brad Bird play himself.
I'm sure he would have loved that.
And I bet they could have gotten John Lasseter through Brad Bird. Yeah, he's a busy guy, and he's a big up on Disney, but
Yeah, but anyway, that just really bothers me, that whole Mixar, Maple shit. Just fucking call it Pixar.
Yeah.
Later on, they make a joke about Homer and Bart being Walt Disney and Mickey Mouse. Actually, it was earlier on.
Yeah.
So you didn't have to say Walt Disney and Ricky Rouse.
Ricky Rouse.
And then not only that, but instead of I guess
goes
whatever
from there,
whatever
yes.
their Toy Story parody is, instead of a Mr. Potato Head, they have a Mr. Carrot Head.
Yeah, well-
it's like why just make it Mr. Potato Head?
Well,
The Simpsons aren't playing with Mr. Carrot Heads. There's been Mr. Potato Head references before.
I actually think they had Mr. Carrot Head in The Simpsons before.
I don't know.
I could look it up, but I'm not going to. So someone tell us in the comments. But yeah, they meet the Mixar guys on the red carpet, and they're like, "What do we think about these people? Tell them, Randy Newman." And Randy Newman's there saying, "You've got an enemy."
Yeah,
instead
which
of
is
you got
funny.
a friend
Instead
of
of
me.
you got a friend, he's
It was
playing the
fine.
piano. But that whole sequence, he sings the whole song.
Right.
Alf Clausen wrote it. I saw it in the credits. And it was fine. It's Randy Newman. It was Dan Castellano, somebody doing a
Yeah.
Randy Newman impression, and the joke was, "Yeah, I say gibberish," and But it really reminded me of this Randy Newman scene in Family Guy in the Y2K episode where they just have him in a random place with
Which
a
was
piano.
12 years before this episode.
Yeah, and he's just in a random place in a piano, and it's a Randy Newman parody.
Right, it was
And,
very, very
I mean, if
similar.
you're going to do a Randy Newman parody, whether it's Family Guy, Simpsons, or whatever, they're all going to be the same because you're parodying the same guy.
Mm-hmm.
But it just felt like unnecessary. It's like, why, Family Guy did this. Why bother?
Yeah,
Again,
well-
You've Got an Enemy with Me is a funny idea, but
Yeah,
they sing the
it
whole
goes
song.
on. It goes on a while, and then also they have actual like parody characters from Pixar, like the Luxo Jr. The lamp comes
Yeah.
out, attacks Lisa.
Wally has a
Mr.
gun.
Carrot Head. Wally pulls out a gun.
But like
Yeah.
Wally was just Wally. Maybe the design was a little different, but it was
It was
basically
slightly
Wally.
different,
So
yeah.
why not just have a Mr. Potato Head? And the lamp was still a lamp. It wasn't like a ceiling fan or something. It was still a lamp.
Arguably, Mr. Carrot Head is funnier. I liked the visual of a giant carrot man.
I mean, I did too. I just
Yeah, I understand your concern. I think
I like giant reverse alphabetical orders would be anthropomorphic.
There you go.
It works, see?
There you go.
Anthropomorphic vegetables. I love the ones in the Critic, the
I know
giant mutant vegetables.
we're running long. This can be a deleted scene. But you thinking of how to say anthropomorphic and having such a convoluted way is how I remember. It's very similar to how I remember the theme song to Bewitched, which is Bewitched, this is the theme song. Bewitched, this is the theme song, which is not the theme song. That's I Dream of Jeannie. And that's how I
Really?
remember. Bewitched is
So shouldn't you say
I dream of Jean. I dream of Jeannie. That's the Bewitched theme song.
Dun, dun, dun,
Yeah.
dun, 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 dun. You're
So-
right, yeah.
so A, I have it
why wouldn't you
backwards,
make
but I know it
So why don't you
backwards.
just make the words
Bewitched,
it's
too-
Bewitched.
it's
This
too late.
isn't the theme to Bewitched.
No.
Wouldn't that be easier?
Stop. You're confusing me. And if I ever need to know the theme song to Bewitched, you're going to fuck me up. This is going to happen on
I'm gonna-
Jeopardy one day, and I'm going to lose it all.
I'm just going to start doing Bewitched for all theme songs now.
I
I'm
dream of Jean. I dream of Jeannie.
Da 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 Bewitched. Da 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 Bewitched. Da 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 da. This
No,
isn't
don't
the-
ruin my Bewitched.
This isn't the theme to Coach. It's Bewitched.
I actually thought it was Major Dad for a second.
No, man,
That's
what
how
was
I
Major-
remember.
What was Major Dad?
It was like, not Coach. This is Major Dad.
That wasn't the theme.
I think it was. All right, we'll move on. So, where are we now?
So they go into the awards, and this is where we see Gervais talking to the bartender.
Yes.
And they let him riff, basically. You can tell
Let
they
him
just
riff.
let him go off in a booth, and he did his shtick.
Yeah, they had a sign on the bar. I don't know if you saw it. It said, "Do not let this man host the Golden Globes."
Yeah,
which,
yeah.
because as I said before, this was right after that.
Because
first
his
Golden
thing
Globes.
is, I'm so raunchy.
Yeah.
I'm making fun of the celebrities.
Right.
And the first time it was very funny.
Yeah.
Even the second time. But now that's his thing, he came in like he did it this year, and he's like, I'm going to do my thing.
Right,
And
and
it was just like really
well,
lame.
this year it wasn't that
I
bad.
like Ricky Gervais.
I also like Ricky
I think he's
Gervais.
a very talented comedian. I think he's very good improviser. The Office is great, but I think he falls into a trap of kind of just doing his own shtick. He's a little bit too self-aware. Reminds me of a certain hillbilly character from the bus stop.
I don't agree.
And basically he's just doing, it's me, Gervais. And like that's kind of become his shtick now. And it just...
Is Ricky Gervais here? Who said that?
I don't know. It just seems like there's a double-decker bus outside. No, it just...
I'm driving.
I feel like he can get very lazy very easily and more often than not as of late. And most of his riff was not making me laugh. It was just like it was just Ricky Gervais. He might as well have been saying, "I'm Ricky Gervais. This is Ricky Gervais. I'm doing Ricky Gervais bit."
He kind of did.
Yeah.
And then what he does
And
is
it
he's
went on
talking to the
forever.
bartender and he like tips the bartender and the guy's not looking and he's like, "I just tipped you. You just didn't see it." Well, that was a Seinfeld episode
Yeah,
where
I
George
know.
did the
Yeah,
exact same
exactly,
thing.
Yeah.
So
Like
that was a thing.
Yeah, I know he's buddy with Seinfeld, but that was weird.
I didn't hate it. but I didn't laugh at it at all.
The fact that it went on for so
It went on a little
long
long.
really made it bad because
That's
if it
pa- I
was,
mean, that's
if
part
it
of
was,
Ricky Gervais's humor,
I know,
though.
I know
The
it is.
going
but,
on for a
but
long
if it's
time.
funny, like if
Yeah.
you go, if it's the right gag and you're going on and it's just funny, then that's great. But if it's already just kind of and now it's going on for maybe a minute, maybe 2 minutes.
Yeah, I think I just don't want to see Ricky Gervais do his shtick in this otherwise unrelated Simpsons episode.
That's the other
I think
thing
that's
too,
it.
is it felt really shoehorned in because
Yeah,
it was
pop,
so
pop, pop,
again like everything else in this episode. There was no context around it. It was just there. It was
Yeah.
just
Yep.
Like,
It was just-
why there? Why Gervais?
Well, we're at the Golden Globes. We may as well have a 2-minute thing with
Right.
Ricky Gervais.
Yeah, I'm sure if you're gonna do a Golden Globe thing, you could put in a Gervais rant seeded into the episode. I'm thinking of one of our former worst episode ever title holders, the Simpsons Go to Israel.
Yes,
and
the
we
greatest
had
story ever doed.
And we had the same problem with Sacha Baron Cohen, where he ranted and they let him riff, and he just kind of went on and it went on
Right.
forever.
Yeah.
But that was actually part of the story, where he's the tour guide and he's starting to talk about what he's guiding them on the tour, and that segues into his rant or riff about whatever.
Yeah.
At least that was tied into the plot, whereas this is just they just cut away to him at the bar. And
Yeah.
they cut away and they cut back. Bart's
For no
not.
reason.
Homer's not at the bar. Bart's at the bar. Nobody's
No,
at the bar.
there's no character interaction. It's just an
Yeah.
unrelated scene
At
in the middle
same
of the episode.
building.
Yeah,
Like that would be like doing an episode about the power plant and then just cutting to
cutting to Mo and just seeing like, I'm Mo.
Well, I was gonna say somebody in the power plant, but yeah, pretty
No,
much.
well, I like Mo.
Anyway, and then again, like I said, the Russell Brand thing that also was that was his only thing in the episode, I think.
It was, and we talked
Yeah,
about it.
and it
It did
wasn't
nothing.
funny, yeah.
And I like Russell Brand too. Actually, I know a lot of people don't, but
All right, so what do you think of this? So at the Golden Globes, they do the nominees and they show
Right.
the competition. They go, here, this, nominated. The nominees are, and they do the first one, and then they show it. Then they do the second one, and they show that, and then they do the third one, which is the condiments by Mixar, and they don't show it. They show it later at the
show
Oscars.
it later on.
They show
Yeah,
two
yeah.
more. They do that and a Wallace Gromit puppet. But didn't you find it jarring that they decided to do two of them here and then two of them a few scenes later? It makes sense. You don't want to see four back to back. But
you're right. I bet that's why they did it.
But I didn't know the condiments thing was coming, and I was just like, why did you just show me this
Yeah,
Triplets
why-
of Belleville parody and this
and
war?
Persepolis.
Oh, is that
parody.
what that was? Okay.
Yeah.
This Persepolis parody, and then you give me this hint of this condiments. And by the way, I think that's a great idea for a Pixar spoof. Condiments.
Yeah, condiments. It's a good one.
Anthropomorphic.
There you go. Look at this guy. Reverse alphabetical order.
Anthropomorphic condiments. Condiments.
Anthropomorphic, comma, mince.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, I can't wait to see that one. And then
Yeah.
they didn't show it. I was like, oh man, they do eventually.
Right,
but I
it
didn't know
comes
that.
later. Yeah, right,
So
right.
I found it a little jarring.
It was
I don't know
jarring.
how. I don't know what the solution is. You can't do four back to back.
I bet it was just to split it up because they're long. They're not short.
Yeah.
It's not like the front, like we were talking about before,
Right.
where it was just very, very quick blurbs like how to buy Action Figure Man, and it's just like one line.
Right.
These were full on parodies. And like you said, we got the Triplets of Belleville was the first one. I don't remember what the parody
It
names
was
for any of these were.
It was the brothers instead of sisters. It was three French brothers. It was
Right.
that style. That was a hand-drawn movie from like 10, 12 years ago.
Yep. I thought it looked
French.
really good,
It looked great, yeah.
but it wasn't funny.
No.
It was just they were all like doing things through their noses.
Yeah.
I've never seen the Triplets of Belleville. I have no idea if that's what the movie's about.
No, it's not about them putting things
It's not
in their
about things
noses
putting
for-
the. Then
for
I
an
really
hour.
don't know why they did it.
They
But it
put
looked-
shit in their butts, but...
They did. Oh, they're opposite men. Okay, the opposite men of Belleville who put shit in their butts.
If anything, it was like a weird itchy and scratchy thing because it became very bloody and violent.
Right. It just turned the guy just puts toothpicks up his nose and sneezes out an Eiffel Tower and then just starts gushing blood all
And then,
over
and then the
floor.
cute fat dog, which was also in Belleville, I think,
Yeah.
eats the blood, which is gross.
Gross.
So it wasn't funny, and even the Persepolis one was
The
even
Persepolis one also looked great. All the parodies
Yeah.
looked really, really
and
good.
that one was more out of all four that they did. I would say that one was the sharpest parody, where it was like the joke was, look how over dramatic this war analogy for peace, and there's butterflies and
Right.
children playing. Like, look how over dramatic it is. At least that kind of had a point, whereas most of the other ones was just a straight up, hey, we're doing the style. But it still wasn't that funny.
It also ended extremely darkly,
Oh, yeah.
where it just like it was a little girl in a tank, and then there's flowers, and then it's later on where the tank is now a playground, and then all the kids explode when they step out of mine. It's
Yeah,
what it
like
looked
decades later, it's
Yeah.
a playground. And
just
then,
like it's a former war zone, and there's still
which
a
is
mine
still
there.
a very serious problem.
It is, and it was just like, okay, we're doing that.
Yeah. So that did make me laugh. We might as well jump ahead to the Oscars. So then,
let's talk about all of them.
Then they do the
So
Condiments one.
Condiments is the Pixar one.
And then that one
Obviously
was
Toy Story.
was a parody of not just Toy Story, but like those kinds of movies in general where they anthropomorphize things.
Right.
And it's a funny idea, Condiments, and they're like, wait, that's it. We have to get out of the kitchen, which is a very Pixar type plot. But there wasn't a lot of funny stuff. Like the waffle jumps in a waffle iron. He's like, wait, I'll come back to the syrupy ending.
I kind of like that as a guy who loves a good pun.
The
I
peanut
like
butter
that.
gets
I also
eaten
like,
and then it dies because if you get eaten, you die. So I guess they all die very quickly.
Yeah.
It's not like toys.
And then the jar of kosher pickles was
It's
a Hasidic Jew. That was funny. I like that.
But other than it being a parody of those movies, I don't know. If you like the waffle pun, fine.
Yeah.
But I felt like
but I thought it looked
for
fantastic.
All that effort, yeah, exactly.
And
They
I don't
put a
know
lot-
if Pixar actually animated. I don't know who animated these
Right.
actual animations. If they got the actual studios.
I don't know. I'm sure it was expensive, and it was cool to see The Simpsons doing other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But that was probably my biggest critique. So especially with the Wallace and Gromit one. So the Wallace and Gromit is the next parody. It's claymation. It's
Right.
like Simpsonized looking, but also Wallace and Gromit type looking characters.
It was essentially a Wallace and
And
Gromit
it was
episode.
basically a Wallace and Gromit episode
Yeah.
where the dog gets into hijinks in the background.
Right.
And that's my problem is, it would, like you said, it's just a Wallace and Gromit. Wouldn't it have been funny to see a Simpsonized Wallace and Gromit? Like the claymation style, but in a Simpsons type humor? Like whatever that is. Something sharper, something a little subversive, something more meta.
I agree. It didn't say anything. It was just we're doing a Wallace and Gromit
Yeah.
thing, and I think that one probably was done by Nick
might have
Park,
been, 'cause
who
he did
is in the episode right after
And he
that.
actually had a very funny
right,
line.
the creator of Wallace and Gromit. Well, he shakes Lisa's hand and his fingers come off, and he goes, "Oh, sorry, that always happens. I'm more clay than man now."
Like that's a very funny,
Yeah,
surreal
that
concept.
That was great. I like that a lot. But you're right. The Wallace and Gromit thing was so close to the original that it wasn't really a parody as much as it was a copy of the original.
Exactly.
Because you're right. It was just, Wallace is doing something while Gromit's getting
And that
beat
one-
up by
that-
a bird.
Yeah, and that's the most egregious example. But really, the other three are just slightly more, slightly less from their originals than that one is. But all four of them in general are just kind of those cartoons in that style.
There's
and they're
nothing.
not-
There's nothing being said about
Exactly.
the things it's parodying.
yeah,
It's just
or at least using that medium, whether it's claymation or that style of war Persepolis black and white animation, using those styles to tell a Simpsons joke.
Yeah,
even
right.
that would have been okay, even if
I
they're not
agree.
saying anything.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of. Other examples. I mean, Itchy and Scratchy, it's its own thing now, but originally it was the Simpsonized version of Tom and Jerry.
right. And it was hyper violent.
Yeah, and even
They just, like the rest of this episode, it's things that are there with no greater purpose.
yeah, it's just weird. It just seems like a waste of effort if you're going to go into all that. I'm sure
Yeah.
they promoted the hell out of this when it came to the time. It's
Probably.
like Simpsons do a CGI segment.
By the way, we never mentioned we're doing this episode because the Oscars are this Sunday.
We should have
mentioned
probably
that
mentioned that, yeah.
way earlier on. Now that we've already talked about the Oscars
yeah,
and all.
probably in the intro.
Well, we're not going to
Anyway,
do it.
we picked this episode
It's because of the
because
Oscars. We'll put it in
Os-
the show notes.
Yeah.
But anyway, back at the Golden Globes, Angry Dad ends up winning. It beats Condiments, I guess. And Homer takes the award on the stage, and he makes it all about him. And then that leads into a montage of Homer winning other awards.
Before that,
Okay.
his acceptance speech, he talks about how he does the voice of Angry Dad.
Oh, you're right.
And he's basically, I guess he's talking about how he does Homer, and he says it's a little Walter
That's-
Matthau,
yep.
a little Snoopy crying or singing,
Snoopy
screaming.
crying and a little, I don't remember the other one. Someone screeching.
Oh, what was it? Anyway, I don't know.
It doesn't
but anyway, the joke is that maybe that's how that's how Dan Castellaneta does Homer's voice.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's out of character. Homer Simpson is
Homer-
not Dan Castellaneta.
Right.
Dan Castellaneta is a real person who does the voice of
Who
Homer
is a
Simpson.
competent and fantastic voice
A
actor.
very great voice actor who can do an impression of Walter Matthau and do Snoopy crying.
Yep.
Homer Simpson cannot. Homer Simpson is
Right,
Homer
and
Simpson.
shouldn't be able to.
He doesn't have that kind of talent. He's not a voice actor.
Yeah, Homer's voice for Angry Dad is Homer's for actual voice. Like I
Yeah.
get the meta joke of
Yeah,
it.
that's the problem.
but
is
it didn't work for me.
And I'm usually more open to meta jokes on the show, I think, than you are.
Yeah.
But only if they're kind of rooted in something. And you're
This is not.
You're sacrificing character for this. That's not Homer. That's
Yeah.
out of character.
Right. Although Homer was a successful voice actor.
That's true.
He did voice
do
Poochie.
He did do Poochie. But again, that was Homer's voice.
Right, it was just Homer
I guess
talking.
there
It was
a
not
third
Homer acting.
Fonzarelli. I don't know.
Right. But then, so Homer wins the award, and then that leads into a montage of other awards. We got like the Kids' Choice Award, the People's Choice Award, and all things like that. And it is a montage of Homer winning the awards, taking it from Bart. And it's set to the Jurassic Park theme music.
Bewitched, bewitched.
This is Jurassic Park, the theme song.
That was
Why?
weird.
Why are we using the Jurassic Park
the
theme?
only thing I can think of is the theme from Braveheart, for whatever reason, has become like an award show staple, and like even during in memoriams. And now I'm going blank on it because we've been singing 6 different theme songs. The last 15
can't think
minutes.
of it either.
So now I just suddenly lost it.
Braveheart, this is the theme song. Braveheart, this is the theme song.
So we have to leave all the bewitched stuff in.
Yeah, I guess so. This whole podcast is now an exercise in making your editing process much harder.
I thought you were going to say making the like just testing the viewers' patience.
Oh, wow. Oh, absolutely that.
Seeing how many listeners we can get rid of in a single week.
There's Canadians listening right now. I heard these guys on Q and they were pretty smart sounding, but now they're just talking about Bewitched for some reason.
They don't get
This
it.
is Rick Moranis and Strange Brew.
No, I don't. The only thing I can do is they use that. Not Braveheart. Did I say Braveheart?
You did say Braveheart.
Dragonheart.
Dragonheart.
The Dragonheart theme song is used a lot in award shows. and
Dragonheart is not the movie with Sean Connery as a computer animated dragon?
It is the movie.
It is that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
and
I was thinking Angel Heart is like a crime movie. This does sound... You're right.
Yeah,
I have heard this definitely in award
so they
shows.
play this like during memoriams, or sometimes they'll say when like they're being overjoyed, like the 86th Academy
Yeah,
Awards
right.
will return after these messages.
Yeah.
So the Dragonheart theme is used a lot. So maybe that was it, but I don't think that was
I don't
it.
think
I think
so.
I'm
It just-
overthinking it.
I think you are, and I think it was just weird. It just didn't like why these things? Why not just make original music? There's no reference to Jurassic Park at all. Maybe if they had like seen a dinosaur or something.
Again,
I don't know.
Like Dragonheart, I guess if they wanted to have this like inspirational, emotional music, but
Yeah.
why? I don't know why Jurassic Park.
Here's another confusing thing that happened right after that montage. Bart is sick of Homer winning the awards, and they're staying at a Hollywood hotel for some reason, and Bart gets a phone call at 5 a.m, and it turns out it's a phone call saying that Angry Dead the movie's been nominated for an Oscar. Bart answers the phone, and he says, "What is it? I'm wearing my retainer."
Yeah, that was
the
really
fuck?
weird. The only thing I can think of was the joke was he answered.
Oh, there's
the
no joke, my friend.
He answers the phone and he sounded groggy because he's like, "Rah, rah, rah," and the joke was supposed to be like, oh no, here comes that mean dinosaur. Rah. I'm just clearing my throat. I'm actually a dinosaur that talks like this. Like that's that trope of a thing where
Yeah, right, right.
So I thought the joke was where he was supposed to. You thought he was sounding groggy, and he goes, "Oh no, this is just my retainer. I sound normal. I'm fine."
Yeah.
Because it's 5 a.m.
But none of I didn't
No.
get any of that.
If
Maybe
that's there, I think it failed again because the pacing was wrong. It was too quick.
Right.
You didn't
Well-
even get us time to. If the thing was, if the joke was why does he sound groggy? Oh, because of the retainer. You didn't give us enough time of him sounding groggy
Right.
because it was just like
Literally,
I
it
have a
was,
retainer.
"Hello, I'm wearing my retainer." That
Yeah.
was it. That was the first
The hell's
words
going
out
on?
of Bart's mouth. I don't know what that is. It
What is
wasn't
that?
a joke. It didn't make me laugh. If you guys liked it, write in, but you're a dum-dum, and we're going to move right along.
We know how you died. Later from Taco Bell.
I'm kind of interested in getting Taco Bell now that we've been talking about it.
I think it's like I'm kind of interested in shitting my pants.
I'm always interested in that. But there's another thing in that scene that I kind of liked, which is Homer comes in and says, "Who was that on the phone?" And Bart says, "Oh, nobody, it was a wrong number." And he goes, "If I find out it's a right number, you're in trouble." I kind of liked that because that's a joke.
Yeah, and right number is a funny turn of phrase.
Yeah,
Sure.
It makes me
Fine.
think of the Tales from the Dark Side episode. Sorry,
Thought you
right
said
number.
Tailspin for a second.
Bewitched.
So Bart decides to tell Homer. He tells Homer to go on a tour of Hollywood, and he sends him
yeah.
as far away from the Oscars as possible, so that if he wins, which is presumptuous, if he
Yes.
wins the Oscar, Bart can take the credit and
Right.
not have Homer hog it all.
I have a few problems even before we get to what actually happens with
Yeah.
Homer. One, there is about 2 months between the Oscar nominations and the actual ceremony. I find it extremely hard to believe that Homer wouldn't hear that the movie he was starring in was nominated for an Oscar and that Bart could keep it a secret from him.
Especially once you win the Globe and all the other awards, wouldn't you be
Right.
like, "Oh, I hope we get the Oscar"?
And if the episode is nominally about like a Bart versus Homer kind of dynamic, I would have liked to have seen scenes of Bart like shielding it from Homer
Yeah,
and like
no.
trying to cover it up.
Again, that dynamic doesn't show up until
No,
the
it shows up at the very, very
end,
end.
and that should have been the backbone to this
Yeah,
episode.
I mean, we're
should've-
in it a little bit because Bart is
Yeah.
now jealous that Homer
Right.
keeps taking it, but there was no setup for that. There's really no payoff
Yeah,
because
no.
Bart gives it to everybody.
There should have been more to it than Bart tries to distract Homer.
Right. So Bart has given Homer a list of these, all these California attractions that are far, far away from, where do they have the Oscars? Is it Mann's Theater?
The Chinese man
It's
theater.
whatever theater it is. We're not LA types. We're New Yorkers.
I just realized that this act is, I guess, they're a Simpsons go-to. Simpsons go to California.
It
Which
kind of
I guess
is.
we've never really. Well, we did the Mel Gibson episode. They go to Hollywood. There's some Hollywood stuff.
Right. There's some stuff there, but we never really
Do a geographical.
Yeah, there's not a lot of
bullet
like
points.
LA specific
Right,
things.
exactly.
Homer goes to, I don't even know what it's called. It's some kind of like junk art spire
Yeah.
thing that I've never
I've
even
never
heard of.
Yeah, I really know nothing about LA. I went
No.
once.
I
was
also
not
went
impressed.
once. I went once. That was it. I had nothing to say after that. But yeah, Homer and Marge are there, and then JB Smoove pulls up.
Yeah.
JB Smoove plays Leon on Curb Your Enthusiasm, amongst
Yeah.
a lot of
and
other
he's
things.
playing like a gangsta.
He's basically playing, the same character he always plays, which
Yeah.
is himself.
It's a car with two black guys and a Latino guy that are supposed to. I guess they're in a gang. We later find
right.
out.
Because I think they're supposed to be on the outskirts
Yeah.
of LA and like gangland.
There's some jokes in here. I don't want to get into it. I feel like
I don't really wanna talk
I don't
about
wanna-
it. It
I don't
was-
want to talk about it. There's like race stuff going on here.
yeah.
We've gone over it on multiple episodes.
Right, and it's a very small piece here.
It wasn't super offensive, but it made me uncomfortable, and
I didn't love it. The only thing I
like
liked,
JB Smoove a lot.
I love
think he's
JB
extremely
Smoove.
funny.
Absolutely. The only piece of this kind of whole thing that I liked was JB Smoove recognizes Homer as Angry Dad and is a big fan.
Yeah.
So he offers to take Marge and Homer to the Oscars, and they do. And when they drop them off, they're like, "You're honorary members of our gang now," which means other gangs will shoot you on sight.
Yeah, see, that's
I
a
thought
funny.
That was really, really funny.
Because that's a funny way of looking at being an
Yeah,
honorary gang member.
right.
Like, that's a great joke.
Yeah.
Yeah. I said I don't want to get into racing, and I don't. There
No,
was
no.
one gag I really hated though, where they go, "Yeah, ain't that right?" And they talk to the guy in the back, and it's this big, huge
Yeah, it was
guy,
like Big J.
and he just like sits there and he barely moves, and just like. And there's like a beat. He's like, "Yeah, that's
like-
right."
it's like, yeah,
that reminded
man.
me of like a Family Guy gag. That's not
It
a
did.
Simpsons joke.
And even the way that character was designed looks more Family
Again,
Guy than
yeah,
Simpsons. Well, we don't need to talk
I don't
about
want to
this.
get into this.
I don't want to
stuff.
get into this
It
either. It's
did-
making me
it
feel
made
weird.
I wasn't I wasn't comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah.
And there's stuff that should be said, and we've said it before in other episodes.
Right.
Oh, so at the Oscars, did you notice it said Banksy on the back in the background?
It did, yes.
Like,
I think that must have been Banksy did a couch gag at one point. It must have been earlier this season, and I think they may have like tagged Banksy in different things in different episodes as like a running thing.
Yeah, you
It's
know,
whatever.
I feel like it would have been funnier if it was said El Bankso.
Oh, I kind of like
Wouldn't that
that.
be funnier?
Yeah,
That way
could
it's
be
an
funnier.
El Barto joke,
Right.
but it's Banksy.
But it's also a Banksy
and, like,
thing.
Banksy is a very, very talented artist.
Yeah.
And I feel like he would put more thought into something than just kind of putting Banksy there. Not a lot, because he
Right.
does tag things with his name, but that's El Bankso. I think is like the perfect way to like pay homage
Yeah, that
to
could have
Banksy.
been funny.
Yeah.
I would have liked that. We got Halle Berry. She's a presenter at the Oscars.
She's a
doesn't
very
do
unlike
much.
actress. She was better than Russell Brand or Ricky Gervais in this episode. She was like she didn't suck it up.
She was fine, but she doesn't really do
No,
much.
she doesn't do much.
She has a funny line where she's like, most people think of animated features as 40 minutes or more, but there's also 40 minutes or less.
Yeah, and
I kind of like that.
That's not a bad line, and she did a decent job delivering it.
Yeah, I mean, she's
She
an Academy
was
Award-winning
fine in this,
actress.
yeah.
She won for what? Catwoman?
Yeah,
I think it was Catwoman.
She won.
Oh, it was Swordfish. That was what it was.
She won best career ever for Catwoman
Yeah,
and Swordfish.
I think so. And When a Stranger Calls.
and the frog
Gothica,
line from X-Men 1.
The Call. These are all actual the Halle Berry movies.
Oh, the call. God.
The Call
You ever
was...
see Gothica?
No, I didn't.
That movie sucked.
That
That was before Robert Downey Jr. had his
It was
renaissance.
right before Iron Man,
and
a
he's
couple
so
of years.
dumb in it. It's such a dumb movie.
think
and it
I
was
read the
directed
plot
by
synopsis.
It's directed by the French director who he was in Amelie, and he directed La Haine, The Hate.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and he's
I
a really
remember La Haine.
talented director, and it was a dumb movie.
Yeah, all right.
Robert Downey Jr. is so dumb. He's so dumb.
I think it came out the same year as Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which is
That's a great
just,
movie.
I couldn't be more
That's
different.
one of the best movies
Yeah,
ever made.
I love Kiss Kiss
Gothica
Bang
was
Bang.
dumb.
Yeah, you heard it here, folks. Hot take from Jack. Gothica, that was dumb.
Dumb movies, ghosts and stuff. Dumb.
Wasn't there a movie that Halle Berry was in where she like was the killer? It might have been When a Stranger
that was
Calls.
the one with Bruce Willis. That was terrible.
Was that When a Stranger
Yeah,
Calls?
yeah.
Yeah, where it was
Spoilers.
like she's like, look, man, you can't spoil a shitty movie. No one should see it. I didn't see it. I think I spoiled it
I
myself.
saw it. I loved it. I thought it was great.
This guy again.
I saw it. What is he? He's Bugsy now? I thought it was great. See? Yeah, I love the ending. Turned out she was the killer. Even though they didn't set that up at all, and it made no sense for a character.
Yep.
What a twist. I thought it was great. Man, I also love Lady in the Water, see?
Oh. All right, now we're just talking about shitty movies.
I thought Gothic was smart.
Lady in the Water
See?
is an awful, awful, awful movie.
That's right,
But let's move
Gothic
on.
was great, see?
Gothic was great. You heard it here first. Hot take from opposite Bugsy. Moving on, though.
I'm actually a police officer from the future, see? That's right.
We finally see a clip from Angry Dad. We hadn't really seen
Yeah,
the
that's a
Angry
good
Dad the
point,
movie,
yeah.
and we see it here, and I didn't think it was all that good.
No, it was-
and it seemed like a weird clip that they would have chosen to show at the Oscars.
I don't remember the original Angry Dad episode much and the
Me
segments
neither.
from that. But yeah, it didn't make me laugh.
No,
I-
like the gag was Homer or Angry Dad wanted a drink, and he couldn't get a free refill, so he turned giant, smashed a dam, and drank the whole river.
I'm trying to think of other analogs of like movies within movies on the show.
Yeah.
I mean, The Front had an Itchy and Scratchy episode, but that was pretty much just a good Itchy and Scratchy episode. It didn't really matter that Bart and Lisa had wrote it. It was just a good episode.
Yeah.
The films from the film festival episode, they were more character-based humor. Isn't
Right.
it funny to see Mo singing and dancing because he's Mo?
This was nothing.
This was
What
nothing.
was I supposed to find funny
was
about
just-
this?
This had no personality.
Yeah, exactly. I had nothing to me. And then they win the Oscar, and Martin Scorsese does a little
so Bart
little thing.
So Bart wins the award,
Right.
And he finally gets the credit because Homer's not there, and he decides to go. You know what? Actually, I do wish my dad was here. He was a part of this. In fact, movies are very collaborative, and
Right, well, Martin Scorsese gets up and
yeah.
says, "Movies are a collaborative medium."
yeah, exactly. And he goes into a long rant where he's referencing like obscure film critics and filmmakers.
Yes.
And it was I thought that was actually the voice wasn't spot on, but I thought it was a very funny
It was fine.
Martin Scorsese impersonation.
Yeah.
It felt really shoehorned in. There was like no point to it. Again, there was context in this case, but it just kind of was there.
Right. It's
I feel
he would
like-
be at the Oscars.
I feel like if there was more of that, it would have been that would have been that Looney Tunes Animaniacs episode I was talking about, where
Mm-hmm.
it was a Simpsonized version of modern Hollywood, where you have them schmoozing with all the celebrities in like a one night at the Oscars kind of episode.
Yeah.
That scene would have felt more at home in there and probably would have been better. I like the scene individually, and I like the Scorsese parody, but I don't know what that was. But more importantly, the why does Bart suddenly change his mind?
Yeah,
Out of
for
nowhere.
no reason. No reason
I
at
mean,
all.
he's right. Again, if the episode is trying to say something about the award shows are stupid and pointless, that it's kind of arbitrary,
Yeah.
makes no sense. Movies are collaborative. There's a lot to be said there. I would love to see The Simpsons take down award shows. The Front, they don't really do that. That's not what the episode's about.
No, it's not what the episode's about.
I would love to see The Simpsons say something about how the Oscars are kind of pointless and stupid. I mean,
Yeah,
I'd still
they
love to
don't-
win.
they don't
I
here.
would still love to win a potty, but
Absolutely.
But in the end, there's lots of great podcasts out there.
Yeah.
So
There's this one. There's 90th percentile, and that's
and
it.
that's it. And as
Lots. There's a rainbow of podcasts out there.
yeah, there's a lot to be said, but they don't say anything, and it comes out of nowhere. And there's no motivation for Bart, even taking the collaboration aside, even if it's just Bart wants to share this with his dad, which is much more personal, smaller story.
Yep.
Where's that coming from? Why is he changing his mind?
No reason
he
at
just
all.
feels
It just
bad.
happens, yeah.
Homer was a dick. Homer
Yeah.
was taking too much credit.
Yep.
Although, what did Bart do? He didn't write it. The movie seemed to have already been written when Bart came in.
Yeah, I don't think Bart had anything to do
I'm
with any
not
of it.
sure-
Why is he accepting the
I'm
award?
not sure why the chair guy even needed to check in with Bart if he clearly already owned the rights. Did Bart co-own the rights?
What a great question. I have no idea. And the chair guy is gone.
Yeah.
He's long gone at this
mean,
point in the
if the
episode.
chair guy owns the rights
Shouldn't
and-
he be the one accepting the award as the
isn't-
major producer?
Isn't that why he wanted to make his money back?
Yeah.
What's going on in this episode?
This episode was not great story-wise. And it ends with Bart cutting up his Oscar and giving little Oscar pieces to the whole production team, which is a cute idea
Again,
if that was what this
if
episode was
is
about.
that's a great ending.
That's a great ending to a different episode.
yeah, to a better episode.
Yeah.
No, this episode was just huge missed opportunities. You had two great ideas. You could have even tried to do both. You could have had this tension between Homer and Bart, with Homer taking credit. Bart's finally good at something, even though again he has. What is he doing? He's not
Yeah,
animating.
I have no idea.
I know what he's doing. But if Bart is involved in the creative process, you have a great tension between him and Homer, or you can do the or you can do the award show. Or award shows are pointless. Look at this, is ridiculous. They're getting $200,000 gift bags. What's going on here?
Yeah.
You could do either one of those. You do both.
Man, are they really $200,000 gift bags?
They're up there. I don't know if they're
Oh my
200,000.
God.
They're getting very ridiculous.
That is an insane amount of money. I
Yeah.
need to be nominated for an Oscar just so I can get the gift bag.
No, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. And, it's the rich getting richer. They don't
Yeah.
need this stuff.
No.
It's really, it's being donated by these companies to get...
Right, so they get exposure.
the buzz, yeah.
But anyway, sorry.
It's such a missed opportunity. It's so frustrating.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating.
This could have been a great episode, and instead
then-
it is this.
Yeah, and then one last note. So Homer goes, somebody makes a joke, or Lisa makes a joke about how you can buy Oscars for $5 a pop on
Right,
eBay.
replacement Oscars or something,
And it
yeah.
cuts to, it pans over to Maggie, who's sucking on one as a pacifier, and then it quickly, like immediately, fades to black, and then... It fades to black and then transitions into a cut scene.
The second Ricky Gervais
for the
scene.
end credits. Like
Yeah.
over the credits, they have another scene of Ricky Gervais riffing by himself. A Ricky Gervais monologue. Clearly, it was from they recorded. They liked it. There was nowhere to put it. Put in the end credits. That's fine.
that's fine.
But besides the fact that it wasn't very funny,
We didn't like it, but that's okay.
but again, it just shows you how directly in this case, this Gervais thing really fucked with the editing of the episode. The editing was so weird in this episode.
It was.
The joke is, or if you want to call it a joke or whatever, Maggie sucking on the Oscar as a pacifier. But unless you've blinked,
Where did she get that Oscar from?
I don't know, but
I
if
guess
you
they
blink,
bought it
you
on
miss
eBay.
it because it was such a weird fade to black. It
Yeah.
kind of fades and then suddenly it's like, all right, Ricky Gervais.
Yeah.
It was so
it was weird. It was
off-putting.
jarring, and I didn't like it.
When most people think of animated movies, they think of 40 minutes or more. But there is another type of animated film, 40 minutes or less.
And that's it for this episode. It's time to rank this episode on our Hippo scale. We're going to look at the humor, the integrity, the production values, and the originality. So, Jack, we are going to do what? We're going to put 2 minutes on the clock.
Bewitch, beep, beep, bewitch, bewitch, beep, beep, bewitch.
I love it. Okay, so first we're looking at the humor. Jack, what do you got? 0 to 5, 5 being the highest, 0 being the worst.
Like I said, I saw there were 3 or 4 gags I liked. I don't know if I loved
Not a
anything.
terribly... There's some things that work in this episode, comedy-wise.
Some. I don't know. I feel like 1.5 might be too high. I'm wavering between 1 and 1.5.
So 1.5 is where I was, and I'm gonna go with 1.5.
What did I say a couple weeks ago? Three jokes is a 1.5?
I think so. There were definitely 3 things I liked in this. I can't
but there
remember
weren't
what they
3
were.
things I loved.
Yeah, that's a good point. The integrity of this episode. What are you thinking? 0 to 5.
Well, like I said, Homer is not the same person as Dan Castellaneta, so that was out of character.
True.
Bart, I'm not quite sure what Bart's character has to do with Angry Dad. I guess that's more commentary on the original Angry Dad episode. But what was his creative process here?
I have no idea. Nothing makes this episode is not integral to itself.
Why does Bart at the last minute decide to forgive Homer and want to share the award? Where did that come from?
Yeah,
where did that come from?
I'm just going
1.
to jump into 0.5, actually. I'm going to give this episode.
Good old 1.
Production values. This is where this episode will probably
Yeah.
be slightly high. I want to be high on this for the production because I like all the parody things.
All 4 parodies, and even if you want to say Angry Dad as like that weird crayon hand-drawn animation,
Right.
They all looked great.
But this episode also had all these
didn't-
weird editing problems and
Yeah.
this jarringness and the weird
That's
ADR.
that's true too. And also,
so I got to
they
take
look-
off some points.
They look great, but to what end?
Yeah.
You're right. The editing was really bad in this episode.
I wanted to say 4 because I liked
Because
the
that
parodies
stuff
and
was
everything,
so
but I'm
nice.
going to go 3.5 because there were a lot of issues here.
I think I might go below average because
Oh.
those editing issues were really bad. This
Okay.
was probably the worst edited episode I've seen
Okay.
so far. But then again, it seems silly to give it a 2, considering you do have all those animation things going on. 2.5.
Okay, right down the middle. And we have the originality of this episode. Jack, 0 to 5.
It was original. Again, it could have been you could have done the weird Looney Tunes night at the Oscars, or you could have done an award show, tear down the award shows, or both.
Or a Homer and Bart
Yeah.
episode that happens to take place in an award show.
Sure, but we also consider storytelling and structure in here. What the hell was that first scene about?
I have no idea.
This was terrible. This is terrible structure, terrible storytelling. There was no story. The very last
There is no
minute,
story, yeah.
The very last minute, Bart has a change of heart. Is that a change of heart? What was it changing from?
I don't know. The fact that
He had an of.
there was no story, so I think I'm going to give it a 0.
One.
I think I'm going to give it a 0. There's no story.
Have we ever done a 0 before?
Maybe. Let me see. Have we done a 0? I have given zeros in the past.
If you give it a 0, then my 1 seems way too high.
I don't think you've ever given a 0, but I have given zeros before.
I don't want this to be our worst episode ever.
Oh, it won't be.
It won't?
No.
All right. I'll give it a 1.
Actually, it's it's a little lower than it should be.
It's pretty bad. It's a pretty bad episode.
All right, I will give it a half point. I don't want to give it a 0.
All right, I'll give it a half point as well. I could give it a 1, but again, I'm so mad about the missed opportunity. I'll give it a 0.5.
Okay, so we have crunched our numbers, and Angry Dad the movie from season 22 has ranked as a slightly better episode than Father Knows Worst, and a slightly worse episode than I Won't Be Home for Christmas. Jack, that puts it pretty low. It is number 7 now on our worst episode
Our 7th
ever.
worst episode.
Our 7th worst episode in the top 10, bottom 10.
I think the bottom 10, especially the bottom 5, are for our truly most like offensive episodes. This isn't an offensive episode, but it might be our hollowest. It might be our most Kevin Bacon of episodes.
I think you're right. This is the Kevin Bacon of episodes.
It's so lacking in anything, and any substance, any structure,
there's
any
no
meaning.
depth at all. It's just
maybe that's what's offensive about it. It's so offensively hollow.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm offended that the missed opportunities as well. No, that's a perfect spot for it.
All right, so that's where it is. If you disagree, you can let us know, write in, or write on our subreddit, our worst episode ever. But that is it for this episode of the podcast. And you can go to our website. It's weepodcast.com, weepodcast.com. From there, you can find our Facebook, Twitter, the Reddit, all of our Sync Points episodes.
You can check
90s
out
percentile.
check out our new 90s podcast if you haven't
Check it
already. And also,
We've gotten some really great feedback, so thank you for listening and checking it out.
We have. I appreciate that. And we've also been asking for people to leave 5-star reviews for 90s percentile because it's new.
Yes.
Feel free to do that for this show, too.
Please do.
We don't get as many as we used to anymore because we've got like over 100. But
We're an old show now.
What's Serial's got like 10,000 or something.
Let's
go
compare
for
ourselves
10,000.
to Serial. I think that's a good idea.
Let's go for 10,000.
Yeah.
I mean, you were POW and went AWOL. And
Yep, that's exactly what happened. And then I foresaw my death from diarrhea. No, we love that. If you haven't listened to 90s Percentile yet, if you like the parts of this show where we don't talk about The Simpsons, you should really listen to 90s Percentile.
But that's not all it is. It's not just. It's not
a wacky show.
It's not. It's not the deleted scenes from We.
No, not at all. But I think if you're like, I don't care about the 90s, you might still enjoy the show. So check it out.
And we don't just talk about the 90s. It's basically an hour-long conversation about whatever the 90s topic inspires us to talk about.
Exactly. So check that out. Sync Points, those are things that we've done. Those are movie commentaries we've done.
New ones should be coming out
New
very
ones coming
soon.
very soon. Those
So
are $2.
keep an ear out for that.
The Simpsons movie and Home Alone 2 are available right now. We're going to be doing some good ones. And if you are in the Brooklyn area, Woohoo Classic Simpsons Trivia is coming up first Thursday of this coming month in March at Berry Park in Brooklyn. It is Diorama Rama is coming up. So we're going to have a lot of photos of that, and I'll share that if you're not around.
I said I was going to make my diorama like 2 months in advance just to get out of the way, and I know it's going to be Wednesday night, the night before. I'm going to like just freak out and try to do it.
No cow hearts. For the love of God, please don't bring them to Simpsons Trivia.
It's not as funny as you think.
No, it's not. And I think that's it. So next week, we are going to be doing another episode, and it is from season 19, E Pluribus Wigum.
Oh, must be an election coming up.
It is an election coming up. So we're going to be doing that one next week. So come back for that. And Jack, that's it for the show. How do we always end the show?
Well, we had some cut all this that we have, but too lazy to look them up right now. So I'll just say this. Eventually, you'll hear somebody else say, cut all this.
Cut this, cut all this, cut this.
You've got an enemy. You've got an enemy. You better have 9 lives because we have 8 nights. Yes, you've got an enemy. You've got an enemy. I didn't do scat and do the hate your guts. I do that and do the bye.